Amazing.
That is football.
Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Memory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you an NFL Week 2 preview between the Oakland Raiders and the Miami Dolphins. Now let's look at Oakland in this ball game. You look at the offense, and they have to get more versatile in their passing attack. I'm talking about utilizing guys like Marcel Reese, outstanding fullback that can beat your corner down the field, and also Brandon Myers, the tight end. Got to get those guys involved. And when I look at the pace of the game last week versus San Diego, the pace was there. They were able to move the football up and down the field against San Diego. The execution is what failed them. If they can execute, especially when they get in the red zone, Oakland's passing game will be just fine. Now the offensive line versus the Dolphins defensive line stunts, that's going to be the biggest thing they're going to have to face this week. They got to communicate, got to pass, got to play the piano, pass guys off, and that way they can have a chance. Now defensively, when you look at stopping the Miami Dolphins, you have to put pressure on the rookie right tackle, Jonathan Martin. This guy is struggling right now, and he's struggling mightily. You want to get that front side pressure in the face of Ryan Tannehill and keep your hands up. That way you can get batted passes at the line of scrimmage. And Rolando McClain versus Reggie Bush, that's the biggest matchup I want to see. He has to mirror him throughout the ball game, running and passing, making sure he stuffed the talented playmaker right there at the line of scrimmage or even in the backfield. And you want to get off the field on third downs. That killed the Raiders last week versus San Diego. They couldn't get off the field. You have to get off the field against a team like Miami that has some talent to move the football downfield. The X factor for the Raiders has to be Greg Knapp. He has to make sure he call a perfect game as far as against the Dolphins. Got to make sure you mix it up and get versatile in your passing attack, and you can have a chance to win on the road, especially making that trip all the way cross country. Now you look at Miami in this ball game. They have to make sure they get one of their talented playmakers in the passing game, the football quickly, Devon Best. You want to make it look like a punt return or a kick return for him. Get him the football quickly, allow him to make one miss, and then you can have a chance. Now, the Raiders are an aggressive bunch, so misdirection, that's your draws, your screens, your counters. That can combat the aggressiveness of that Raiders defensive line and catch these guys in bad situations, and you get the favorable matchup, and that way you can bust some long runs. And even in the passing game, I say scratch a receiver, sit one, and carry four backs. You got to get those guys the football, and that's where you're strongest at, your running backs. You have a quartet of backs that have speed and also agility. Get those guys on the field, sit a receiver, start four running backs, and you look at lean 60-40 run passes. We see Ryan Tannehill struggling, take the ball out of his hands, run it a little bit more, shrink the ball game. Don't put him back there and let him throw the football 35 times a game. And defensively, press versus the Raiders wide receivers. They have to prove to me that they can consistently get off bump press. I still like the corners of Miami. You got to make sure you jam those receivers at the line of scrimmage and pay close attention to wherever Marcel Reese is lined up. This guy is an X factor. He's a talented player. He's a versatile guy. Pay attention to where he's lined up because they're 9 times out of 10 going to go to him. And same rules apply for the outside zone. You got to set the edge. Just like you did last week, you were able to bottle up just enough the Houston Texans running game. You got to make sure you set the edge versus the outside zone. Now let's look at some positional breakdowns in this ball game. You look at Miami having the advantage at the running back. They're tied at the running back position, but Oakland has the better quarterback with Carson Palmer. They also have the better receiving core, and Miami might give the edge to the tight end position. I think they're even on the O-line, D-line, linebackers, and secondary. So I really like what I see from the Dolphins in the trenches, but everywhere else there's some question marks, and I think the Raiders have the advantage, obviously, in the special teams if they can find a long snapper. If you look at this matchup, Raiders are coming out east, and that bodes well for the Dolphins, but I think the Raiders have just enough offensively to win this ball game on the road. It's going to be a low-scoring game, but I think the Raiders do have enough offense to win.